success, and that would be our plan.
Kevin, when and why did it become apparent that Max could make the roster, not just be like a practice squad development guy?
Yeah, I think, we had the benefit of seeing Max and getting to know him throughout the process that started really 2 years ago with the way he had the ability to throw at the previous year's Gopher Pro Day. And then to get to see him again after getting to watch him play, and we have some great relationships with PJ and his staff. So you learn a lot about the makeup of the player. But from day one, it was obvious his capacity mentally, and then also, how he took very quickly to how he could apply some of the techniques and fundamentals that we were training and coaching to productive reps in a very short amount of time. And then he was able to carry that over this training camp. And then, Max had some quite a bit of snaps in the preseason, and it wasn't always perfect. It wasn't always real clean around him, and that's every quarterback playing at certain times of preseason games. But he found a way to move the team. He found a way to make a throw. He found a way to apply principles at the position that we deemed to be pretty positive. And at the same time, I think Max is one of the hardest working guys, young guys that I've been around. And we got a few of those in the quarterback room. So I think getting the type of room we have now together, it's about growth. It's about improving every single day and really feeding off of one another as we approach the season.
I think you guys have 4 corners on the roster at the moment. How do you feel about the depth there, and what's kind of the plan to handle that position?
Yeah, it's a position, obviously we have the ability to play big nickel and different things like that. So we look at that group with that versatility, but we're able to bring back Fabian, who we view as a NFL caliber guy who can come in and play a lot of snaps for us, and we'll always be mindful throughout the season to look at different opportunities.
Trading Harrison Phillips, I'm just curious what went into that decision, how much of it's trying to balance just the age of the roster and looking forward, and then also with that, how difficult of a conversation was that?
A lot of that is, it's you bring in some guys to that room and you're looking at the plates. Throughout the conversations for the spring and the training camp, I'm always trying to be ahead of what could possibly come. And then you look at a really deep D-line room and thinking about a possible rotation, different things like that. Just trying to maximize our resources in the best way we can, and thinking about it through that lens. We want to be fair to the Vikings, but also to Harrison. And we thought just that this was the best outcome and best opportunity. But, like you said, he was the first free agent brought in here. I remember the emotion he had when he signed his contract, a big moment for a kid growing up and playing this sport. So to be the person to have to call the agent, and Kev calls the player first, but then he comes and speaks with me, I'll let Kev speak to those conversations, but those are hard. These relationships are real, they're not transactional. So when you have to reverse them in that manner, it's tough. But I wouldn't be doing my job as general manager of the Vikings if I let that dictate what actions we do. But it's certainly a hard part of this job.
Yeah, and kind of like what I said post game down in Tennessee. I know a few of you guys weren't there, but what I mentioned was just Harrison is in that category of the relationships you build mean the most to you, and that was one of the hardest conversations I've had, and it's because of how much I care about the player, but more importantly, what Harrison has poured into the Minnesota Vikings. So I agree with all of the aspects of the move, and I think Harrison, once he got a chance to step back and really understand the dynamics to it and the positive outcome it could be for him, I have no doubt that he's going to make it that, but it doesn't make those initial conversations any easier for sure.
Kevin, what does JJ being voted a captain mean or say to you?
Yeah, I think it's just these guys are, you can't fool your teammates, and that can work in a positive way and a negative way. But I think these guys have just watched the way he's worked, not only this spring and training camp, but I think it goes back beyond that during his, what was, throughout the time of rehab and kind of dealing with having the game kind of taken away from him, getting to step on the grass every day and play. I think they've just seen a guy that works. You guys have heard me talk about some of the unique kind of personality traits and qualities that he has that I think bodes really well, in this day and age in the leadership department in an NFL locker room and on an offense with a lot of veteran players. That it's always a great exercise for me because I can have a perception all I want of players and how their teammates may view them, but when you do it the way we do it and the players get to decide, those votes and those results normally speak pretty loudly about what the team thinks of certain players, and JJ is definitely one of them.
Kwesi, how challenging were the talks with Carolina to get that trade across the finish line?
I don't want to say the word challenging. Ultimately, they have their best interest they're trying to protect. We have ours. That's just the dynamic of those deals. And no matter if the call doesn't go the way you want it to go or it does, I always try and hang up the phone and respect that they're trying to do the right thing by their team, just like an agent's trying to do right by the player. So I wouldn't use that word. Just, every negotiation, just an opportunity to be creative and find solutions. We're ultimately able to do that. I'll keep any of the specifics to that to me and Dan.
You hadn't seen Harrison Smith for a while during the time at the end of training camp. Is he good to go now, or in terms of his health?
Yeah, I have a kind of a full plan to make sure I update you guys next week, and then the full injury report will come out. But in regards to Harrison and any other players that have been, dealing with things outside of really CJ and Tyler Batty, who we officially have put on the designated for return injured reserve. Both those guys dealing with, minor knee injuries, and we feel good about their chances of being able to help us sooner rather than later. But in regards to, Harrison or any other player, we'll update you guys next week, and ultimately the official injury report will be out Thursday.
Last couple questions.
Why do you see more trades, do you think, now in modern football? It seemed like it was always free agents, and you'd wait to see who got cut and who was on the waiver wire. And now teams are proactive. You've got, Hawkinson going back to Hawkinson, et cetera. Is it just that people have figured out strategically to be proactive and to make moves, or?
It's a great question. I'm not particularly sure. I guess I wasn't, in this chair back then when I guess they happened a little bit less. But, I think people are always mindful of that. When you trade a draft pick for a player, it's that known versus the unknown, right? And I think people have probably grown just more comfortable with that through time, just the different, whether that be different sports or different things that are publicly known. I think that the collective wisdom of those types of things has kind of grown as a football community. I think relationships between GMs has probably increased in that sense. We're all at the combine together. We're all at these different areas. So, when you pick up the phone and you want to make a deal with somebody, it's nice to have spoken with them, been in a place with them, have a rapport with them. So those could be things contributing to that, but ultimately I'm not too sure as to why they've picked up in their way.
This could be for either of you guys, but how do you feel about special teams, the two returner spots, punter, just special teams as a whole?
Yeah, I think, we're excited about Miles Price, some of the things he was able to do. I think there's some young players where you start to feel a sense of confidence from them. And Miles, it didn't take long to feel that. I would probably classify it as, rookie minicamp, regardless of how he arrived here. That's a player that's very confident and ultimately knows the role that we're looking for him. And I think we feel pretty good about Ty Felton and Miles and just the variety of guys either on our roster and or practice squad that can step up and play those roles when required. But I think that's been a point of emphasis, not only just the returners, but I think it's the other 10 guys that are on the field with them as well that I feel very good about Matt Daniels and his special teams group because of, I think, the depth of our roster. And that's not just the 53, that's also the 16 guys, plus Max that we have as our international player as well on the practice squad. We've got a very deep football team, in my opinion, and that bodes really well for that phase because you want to always take an approach with offense and defense in a way where you know that the amount of snaps and the volume of snaps are going to matter there. But we've seen time and time again over, I know, my first 3 years here, impactful plays in that phase and areas we can improve that we're definitely attempting to do that. And I think we've got some players now, good young players with some skill sets that we're hoping can really take off.
Kevin, when you look at
Kevin, when you look at Adam coming back, and obviously he's giddy to be here, but how do you see him fitting into your offense once Addison's back? When you have, obviously they probably are 1 and 2, he drops to a third. Where do you see him fitting in this offense?
Yeah, I think
Complementing his skills from
I think the best part of what we've built here is knowing how versatile we want our number one receiver to be in Justin. Justin plays outside, he plays inside, he motions to and from, pretty unique formations at different, motion tempos. And there really is no such thing anymore as whatever letter they're tied to, whether it be the X, the Z, the F, whatever letter that is almost just for kind of the chalkboard in a lot of ways. Of they've got to be able to line up as a single receiver. They've got to be able to line up with Justin in a stack in a 2x2 formation. They got to be able to line up with TJ, away from the passing strength in many ways. And there's really not, as crazy as it sounds, I'm not sure we have very many variations of formations to come up with. We're surprisingly, we're surprisingly pretty close to maxed out there. But I think the versatility that Adam has shown, not only just in 2022 in year one of the system, but then as he's, took on learning a new offense and a new system, there's some just great tape of him doing all of the things that we're going to need him to do for us. And, I look at it, our confidence level in Jalen Naylor, as well as just Jordan Addison might have had one of the best training camps out of anybody on our roster. So when he returns and hits the ground running, I view it as a really good problem to find roles and responsibilities for that room, knowing that we're going to be able to, not only have depth for the season, but we're going to be able to navigate these first 3 weeks the right way as well. Thanks, guys.